Hit the lights!
You've discovered the Halfwatt podcast. We want to educate and entertain by tapping into the most trusted source of new technology, the ones installing and innovating it. You, the tradespeople that build from the ground up. Join us as we talk with industry leaders, veteran contractors, and even some young blood.
Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. Today, my guest is Gage.
Howdy.
Big timer. And looking all sharp with that Navy haircut, by the way.
Thank you. It's
handsome guy, man.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's straight goods. So we're just gonna kind of chew the fat here for a little bit. So we've now podcasted for a while.
Yeah.
Right? And we thought tonight we'd just sort of talk about some of our experiences.
Yeah. We're just gonna have a little powwow, talk about
not those kind of experiences. Put your clothes on, Gage. Damn, dude. No. Experiences we've had troubleshooting, working with equipment.
Yep.
And then we're going to talk about this Milwaukee Pack-Out kit.
Absolutely.
That we want to give away to a lucky listener. Correct?
Yep.
All right, so and where would these lucky listeners go to find out what this thing looks like and what it is?
Yeah, we'll put it on the Instagram here pretty soon,
okay.
Which is Halfwattpod. And
Halfwattpod on Instagram.
Yep.
Big
yep.
timer.
And we'll kind of get into the rules. I'm thinking, I'm gonna do like multiple like draws, or not draws, but basically you get one in for following us.
Okay.
Another one for sharing the post on their story.
All right.
And a maximum of 3 per person. And the third one is tagging 2 people.
Does this include people who live in Oklahoma?
Anywhere in the continuous United States. No, I'm just contiguous.
It does not count for people in Oklahoma. I'm
Hawaii,
kidding,
I
Colton.
will send it to you. I promise.
Yeah.
If you
this
win.
This is pretty cool.
Oh yeah. So
talk about this.
So
don't poke yourself with it.
For the listeners that haven't listened to our Milwaukee interview episode, go back and look at that. Mm-hmm. But essentially, so these tools are 100% everything in it was made and formed in America. It was put together in America. It's their USA line of hand tools. Mm-hmm. They're freaking awesome. I've been using my set for like, I don't know, four months now or something like that. And they put them out at a price point that is basically like equal to, competitors like Klein. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of people are like, oh man, that sounds expensive. No, they're awesome tools
Okay, so I'm looking at the Phillips. This
Yep.
looks like a number 2 to me.
So they're screwdrivers,
Mm-hmm.
awesome grips on them. They have files halfway up the stem, and the heads laser etched, diagonal crossing.
Which you could see on here, kids.
It's so sweet.
You literally, when we put this on Instagram, you'll see the tip of this has an etching to it.
Yeah.
You can feel it. You can feel it. How does that work with when you put a screw on? It's not magnetic, although I'm sure you could probably magnetize it.
You probably could. I would imagine it is a different, obviously, like most screwdrivers material than the stem, but basically the laser etched kind of just like roughs it up just enough mm-hmm. To where it holds screws in it. And again, I've been using it for a while. I hate non-magnetic screwdrivers, but they hold the screws in them very well. Like
nice.
Very rarely will I have one drop out, which is obviously always awesome.
And I have never seen this on a screwdriver tip ever.
No.
Like when you talked about it, it's like, damn, you're right. You can fit it. But yeah, and then this is an actual file.
Yeah, no, and what's crazy
That's
is
cool.
You feel it and you're like, oh, it's not aggressive.
It doesn't feel aggressive, yeah.
But I was like, my original worry, I mean, yeah.
Here you go. I'm going to go ahead and work on the microphone.
Man, Tyler's throwing stuff.
He was looking.
I was like, man, this isn't very aggressive. But if you look at the bigger ones, mm-hmm. it gets more aggressive as it goes. And I have used them quite a bit. You just need like a tiny bit more, to be able to put something in or out of a mullion or whatever. And I have used them.
A what?
A mullion. So like the whatever metal, stainless steel around like doors, especially like in like nice fancy front doors of buildings. They'll have all the glass and then those the metal parts between.
That's what that is.
Mullion.
So you'll use this to just sort of smooth off things that have a little burr on them or what have you.
Yeah. And man, I have used them for a little bit more than just smoothing out. And surprisingly enough, like I've looked at mine and I'm like, wow, it's still looks like brand new. So they hold up really well. Also,
and each screwdriver, even the straight slots, have the cross hatching tip. Okay. So there's 4 screwdrivers, 2 Phillips and 2 straight slots, and a pair of side cutters because we don't say the other word. And these things are super nice. I have a lot of side cutters, and you could tell that these are not cheaply made at all.
No.
And I remember them talking about this on the podcast, and they're
incredible
exactly
right out of the package. Very smooth.
And a pair of needle nose. Big timers.
And the needle nose, also, I believe they were saying, it's got the reamer on these now too. Okay.
So the next generation has a reamer on the tip.
Yeah, because their channel locks did, and now for even like smaller ones, you can use these needle nose. Also, they have these on the bottom. The what are they called? Thread cleaners on the bottom there.
You see
kidding. Those. You see those teeth?
That's what those are for?
Yeah. Huh. So fully closed, you can see.
Yeah. Okay.
Clean up screws and everything. They cut really nice. And also, you got to love that USA stamp in the metal. You got to love it.
It's
so
not
nice.
even a stamp. It's forged in.
Yeah. So it's like the USA is like.
Other than the fact that they spelled Milwaukee wrong. I mean, I can't. It's not Milwaukee, Oregon, kids.
No.
But these are, and then these side cutters here, these are more linemen's. These are what I would consider
those are linemen's
pliers, and they're not stiff.
No,
at all.
Right out of the box, they are so smooth.
Yeah, I've got my biggest bugaboo about all my pliers, including brand names that I won't mention here.
Right,
is that they come out a little stiff and they're supposed to loosen up and they don't because they rust. And as soon as they rust in that joint, then they get really stiff.
Yeah.
And you can't really get a good penetrating oil in there like you think you can.
Yeah. Temporarily maybe, but
when you use a lot, when you cut a lot, and you would use that on large gauge wire or whatever you're going to use.
Oh yeah. I cut screws with them all the time.
Do you?
Oh yeah.
The only thing I have any better than that is for a while their competitor made one that has a special you can cut wire rope with it.
Oh,
you can cut stainless steel wire rope with it, and I have that particular model of their competition. They stopped carrying it.
Oh,
you can't get that tool anymore because you could steal bikes. You can cut right through I could cut through a 1/4 inch wire rope with what I have.
That's
you can't
nuts.
do it with those because they don't have the special grip thing or whatever. I can't really describe what it is, but these they only came out with them for about 6 months, and I think the industry said, let's tone this back a little bit.
That out.
Let's make this a tool that you really have to search and not put in Home Depot.
So look at so different than a lot of other brands. Look at the etched gripping.
Yeah, I saw that
in those. So you're also going to get the cross etch laser grips in the needle nose, which work very well.
And the cross is better than the straight because it holds the. If you've used it,
you have more pressure points.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this thing doesn't slide out to the left or the right.
Which
every time I get a pair of needle nose and I'm doing something, I'm like, why is my thing going to the left?
Yeah, so like instead of like having like 6 long teeth, you now have like 24 individual squares holding onto them.
This is really slick stuff. So this pack out kit they gave to us, and we've decided to give it to you. And it comes with the box. And you told me that this foam can be customized so that you can.
Yeah, so it still comes with the foam. So, like me, with the kit that I got from them, I put the hand tools into my Milwaukee, backpack, and then you can trace out with whatever blade you want to use, trace out your drills, and then once the first one fits, you can cut the next couple layers, and it's a nice stable place to put your drills so they don't wobble around. And then it's got the padlock with the reinforced steel,
with this
got the
reinforced little grommet here.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can't just cut that off. And this pack out kit, this you can stack with a bunch of other ones.
Oh yeah,
right? So
as stackable as all the others.
So this, if you wanted to look at this kit after you look at the Instagram, I think if you went to Milwaukee's website and looked at, there was a specific name you called it. It was the
USA line.
Yeah, it was the USA line.
Yeah.
Then you could see the tools and you could see the kits and all that. I'm just looking at this pamphlet, which will go with it. So, sweet.
Yeah, love the grips. Again, just they really did. I mean, like they were saying in the interview, they went across the entire country, talked to electricians in every single state. Hey, what do you want to see from us? What improvements? What things have we put in that you don't think are as necessary as others? Mm-hmm. And then they took all that and they really, blew us out of the water,
Yeah, and they
knocked it out of the park.
They sent us these, and you guys were able to use it because you're both installing. And so you were able to do it. And I'm not installing. So this is mine that I'm going to give to you. Unless you live in Oklahoma, in which case I love picking on Colton.
Did Oklahoma beat Oregon or something?
No, I just love giving Colton.
Okay, crap. So not a salty duck.
There's nothing. No, there's nothing we say on this podcast that he is not listening to.
Perfect.
He's gonna roll when he hears this. Okay, so we're gonna talk. So this is cool, and I think this is a good way of promoting us.
Oh yeah, like the value of this thing is awesome. People are gonna love it.
I think you're right. So we were also going to talk about just things and issues that you've. So let's start. I've been doing nothing but programming. I have not done much field work, although I had to do some troubleshooting the other day. And I will tell you this, kids, when it comes to specific fire alarm things, if you are powering up devices that take 24 volts, you should almost always power those up, at least in the simplex line of equipment, from the power supply that feeds the data to that unit. So let's suppose you have an annunciator.
Okay.
And your annunciator comes off the same fire panel that is handling all your MapNet data.
Which would be the NAC.
No.
I'm not a fire guy.
That was a nice try.
Okay.
Let's try
I'm doing this for the listeners.
Let's suppose you have a fire alarm panel.
Okay.
No, the annunciator would be some sort of remote annunciator, maybe on a nurse station that they could see, something's detonated in this room. If you're going to, in some systems are big enough to have their own separate, kind of its own little fire panel, and it's called a network display unit. And that unit, that whole system will handle displaying things to different operators. And that's really all it does. It doesn't do any thinking. It just says, oh, this is an alarm, and I have to indicate that on this annunciator. And if it's something that they don't need to know, then they don't even know about it. And on your actual fire panel, that's where the meat and potatoes is all at on our system. So we can, on our big buildings, we break it up. We have 1 or 2 network display units that handle just that data. And then, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 nodes that handle all of the actual manly man work for what's going on. So then we just cross over that information. Well, what we found was that inadvertently someone had tied the power from the network display unit to power up some of the devices in the field. And sometimes that can work. Like EST, that doesn't seem to matter with a lot of its equipment, but Simplex, it absolutely does matter.
Okay.
Long story short, what we found out was that at the whoever had tied this together at the very unit where it was powering it up, we didn't have 24 volts. We had like 19 volts.
Oh.
And we needed 24 volts, and it
Yeah.
wound up affecting one of the pieces of equipment negatively because
Yeah.
if your load is exactly the same, your resistance is the same, but your voltage is down, something has to give.
So with something like that, because in access control, we have like a level of acceptance, or and I'm sure there's an actual term for it, but like yeah, it's a 24 volt device. We can do basically 22 to 26 volts. So yeah, 19 that's browning out the
most
equipment.
of these devices can handle down to usually 16 is about as low as you can go.
Oh,
but
okay.
this particular device has it's aspirating, so it's got a fan.
Okay.
It blew the fan out.
Oh.
It affected the fan because the thing has to pull current. So it will pull what current it needs, and everything we have is current limited. So if we have 3 amps available, it'll give you all 3 amps. It'll give you 3 amps until it dies. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so the power supply is not being bothered by it. But the equipment is now pulling more current to get the fan to move than it's rated for, and over time it destroys it because it overheats. So that's what's happening, and we've just figured out that. Now my other journeyman actually figured that out a couple of months ago and told us, hey, I don't think this is being fed right, and I just didn't make the connection until we had an issue and I had to go out and troubleshoot it and saw it, and I was like, oh my God. In other cases, if I have like an annunciator and I feed it from this particular panel, if I power it from a different panel, sometimes they're not bonded the same, and you'll get communications failures. And so it's really kind of critical that you follow, the engineered wiring to say, oh my gosh, this should be fed from. Anyway, my other journeyman went out, and Alan went out and fixed it today, and rewired it and figured it all out and stuff.
Good job,
the damage
Alan.
is already done, but we already know it, and we'll put in something different. But yeah, so one of those technical things. And on the way home, I get a call from a friend of mine who's stuck in front of a simplex panel at a building, and he's like, I'm completely vapor locked. I don't know what to do. This thing's giving me all kinds of stuff. And I talked him through the issue and came back up, green light. That was it. Everything normal. He goes, my God, I had no idea. I'm like, yeah. So I said, he goes, I'm going to buy you dinner. I says, all I want you to do is share that knowledge with everybody you come in contact with. That
you're a better man than me, because I'd have been like, man.
No, I want that knowledge of what we just did to fix this problem to not be held close to your chest. That's
yeah. No, I agree with that part. Okay. Like, for sure, tell other people. But
you mean
where are we
going?
Yeah. Is it on the company? Okay, yeah. Let's go.
Well, I think the world of this kid anyway, so he could call me anytime he wants. But that's awesome. So tell me about some of your technical. Awesome apps.
Oh, Drews.
Awesome.
So I will go into I guess reply very similar story with like Ultronics power supplies and adding 2 systems, especially on like maglock or very heavy lock doors that require. Maglocks don't require this, but heavy inrushes of current, and then maglocks that require constant current all of the time. When as a tech, when you're out there and they're saying, hey, add 3 or 4 more devices to this power supply. So let's say the distribution board, it doesn't have relays. All the relays and everything are done.
This like an 8 channel Ultronics or 8
like,
output?
Like 5.
Like 5 output. Okay.
Yeah, 5.
So 8 amp output on this?
You can get an 8, I think, but usually they're like 2.
Oh wow.
3.5, 6.
Okay.
I work with so many different brands right now. I could be wrong.
No,
if you want to correct me, halfwattpod at gmail.com. But essentially, so some clients, they only want to purchase, a little bit above, what they need, which.
So they need 3 amps, so they're going to buy a 4 amp power supply and with no room for expansion.
Pretty much.
Shocking.
And I've seen a lot, not necessarily with our company, because, other companies might outbid us, but we continue to do the service on it.
Sure.
They have issues, we come out, and you'll see like, well, this was, we'll say a 3 amp, whatever. And there's already 5 devices, 5 outputs. And so they're doubling up, which isn't, that's not a problem, generally speaking, because again, there's no relays, there's no input, this is just feeding power. But when you have things that need a huge inrush of current, you can start seeing problems. So in this case, we have delayed egress mag locks out in the field. So for people who don't know what that means, let's say they want to block an exit for whatever reason. They do not want people to exit out of this, whether it's like a family, I'll just say family birthing center, right?
Okay. All right. So they want to control access so that you don't run out.
Yeah. So,
with a child.
Yeah, exactly. A newborn.
Right.
Yeah. Or, you get into a fight and you just take some dude takes his wife's baby and he's trying to go down the back staircase. That really
does happen.
It does.
Yeah.
But also with that, it's illegal to block exits because, fire, if a fire blocks the front doors, you need to go down that staircase. Sure. So what you'll have is either like a delayed egress crash bar. Okay. So you push the crash bar in, it starts alarming to tell, anyone who's supposed to listen or whatever, like in a non-emergency situation, hey, somebody's trying to exit through that door, and it'll have like a 15-second countdown. Yeah. And then at 15 seconds, it will release power and let you through. So in an emergency, you can get out. So very finicky devices. That's a lot smarter than a regular crash bar and maglock who's just like, oh, I got power, shoop, and then you walk out. So basically what was happening is mixing different locks, ones that need inrush to turn whatever it needs to do, and it was messing up all of those smart mag locks. So the inrush current for whatever device was sucking all the current out of the loop. Right.
How is it affecting the other devices?
Yeah. So because it's got to charge this solenoid, so it needs
So hold that thought.
Yep.
Okay, for those of you who are not super electronically inclined, if I have a solenoid or a coil, when I initially apply power, it has almost zero resistance until the magnetic flux lines form, and then it pushes back. So go ahead, and that's our inrush current.
Yeah, so what was happening is now these very intelligent maglocks or crash bars that need constant power to work the way that they need to work, and they're very stable, their current would dip, like take these hard dips.
Sure.
And then the device would be like, whoa, what, like would just like get amnesia, like,
oh, no kidding.
I don't know what I'm doing anymore. And they just like wouldn't lock anymore.
So they would unlock because as far as they're concerned, they've lost power.
Yeah, they're like,
and when they come back up, their logic is like, what the heck am I supposed to do?
Yeah, so they lost the amount of power that they needed to function properly. And yeah, they would just like the maglocks, they'd be getting the current and the power that they were supposed to, and they just wouldn't be locked. They would just be like Mitch McConnelling, not to get political. Like they just like
that's not very nice.
I know.
About Mitch.
Or joeing, whatever you want to say, but they just like sit there and just like
wouldn't push me on my back, and I can't.
So like
get over on my legs.
They'd have to be resetting these things. Like Tyler's even laughing.
Tyler's laughing.
you'd have to be resetting these things sometimes like 2 to 3 times a day, depending on like how much traffic was going through these doors. So it's like, if you see a technically full power supply, 5 devices, even though, those things, if appropriately, I mean, you can put 10 devices on those 5 ports and have no issues. But yeah, if you're out in the field and you're like, hey, I have to put in these new devices, what's already on there, is it a 3, 4, 6, whatever amperage, what's on it, and these are things that you can call out that is going to save you and your service guy a lot of time, but also, you're going to get an attaboy because they're like, oh man, this was going to cause problems.
How did you fix the problem? Did you just change out the power supply, or
upgrade?
Did you
Upgrade to a bigger
with
amperage.
My 2 Ds for my double dose. Okay, so you went to it was something that had more power available.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
so
I
not
take
the
it
actual.
these were all hooked in parallel. Like if they had that particular door system, it was in parallel with something else, which
Yes.
have the current. So
Right.
Boom.
And
Boom nerd.
devices fighting each other at that point because, like your fire device, they're telling the distribution board itself, I want this. So it's not necessarily always changing out the power supply as much as it is the distribution board that gets fed by the power supply.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's not uncommon to get creep in a system, right?
Yeah.
After a while.
Right.
A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I was working at a building downtown on an old Edwards panel, and this was an old Edwards panel. I've worked on about 5 of them, and there were the name or the number eludes me right now, but if you're a fire tech and you've seen these panels, there usually were 3 strips of metal that you took off the front, and it was a zoned panel. The daughter cards were sideways in there, and the one to the far right had the power supply, and it had a bunch of straight slot screws that you could tie different bonding points into. It was not. It was, and the very bottom flipped over. You could key it so you could close it. Then it had all the controls, the signal silence and reset.
Oh, interesting.
And all that jazz in there. Yeah. So I'm at this building downtown, and the door locks. The door access control system that this guy used was super old, like from the 70s. And I'm looking at this power supply, and I'm, for the life of me, trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And I inadvertently tied that power, because someone had parasitically drawn just 12 volts off to run this. You can already see this coming, to run this access control system.
Yeah.
And so basically someone would ring and the operator would hear it, and he would verify that that person could come through that door, and then he would push a button and it would unlock the door.
He tapped the fire system to do this?
He didn't do it. Somebody else did.
Right.
This was not uncommon at this particular set of properties.
Oh, okay.
I don't really want to say the client, but
yeah.
trust me, they have a lot of properties throughout Portland.
Oh,
and
good.
they do socially, they deal with folks who are just coming off the streets, and they have a lot of they have a lot of low income and very difficult, very low overhead to operate on. So someone just said, yeah, I can get 12 volts from here. Why miss the fact that they were just taking 12 volts? And when I hooked it back up, I hooked it back up to 24, because everything in fire is 24, right?
Yeah.
No. So I noticed like this flash of the LEDs, and I was like, I can't be good. Then I realized, oh my God, I can see how this particular technician figured it out. Of course, I tied it back on the 12 volts, and then immediately the guy's going, hey man, like nothing opens up anymore. So now you got to go walk down the hall and open up all these doors, and it's a pain in the butt.
Oh yeah.
So I had just started with the company I was working with, and I immediately had to draw back to my Navy time. So I went, oh crap. So now I've got this fire system I'm working on, plus we're inspecting it. I just blew up this hodgepodged access control thing. And so I go through it, and I realized pretty quickly that there was just one board of inverter drive. Well, there were several boards, but it was one chip on each board that I'd blown out, and they were the inverter drivers. And what they were is when you feed it 12 volts and you push the button, an inverter driver applies a ground. So the chip just, hey man, we can hear that.
Diesel's in the house.
Diesel the dog's going, I got fleas, bro. That's why he's got that stuff.
Charlie.
So with the inverter driver, the chip itself actually provides a ground. And then you can either, get current to go through it. It's a current limited chip. There's more than just the chip, but that's what that thing does. Blew every one of them. It blew every one of them on these boards. And
really?
Yeah, because it had 24 volts going through it instead of 12.
Why didn't they fuse it off
it's
between them?
I mean, when you looked at the boards on this, the chips were separated by about a half an inch. That's how old it was. So if you worked on electronics, in the original electronic boards, you'd pull them out. Like everything was logically spaced out in nice rows.
Right.
You could easily trace what was going on, and there were sockets and inverter drivers. And I quickly pulled out my cell phone, looked up that chip, went, oh crap, those are inverter drivers. Ordered it online right then.
Nice.
This is like in 2008 or 9. And ordered what I needed, got them sent in, and a week later I took everything home and repopulated the chips at home, came back in. I was like, please work.
Oh my God.
And I put it all back in, and this guy was so excited. He goes, oh my God, you're my favorite. I'm like, well, I wasn't your favorite when I blew it up last week, but here I am.
Right.
So, at this point, I was like, I still need to get you 12 volts that isn't being parasitically drawn off this panel. And I had to actually come up with a 12-volt power supply that I could install that it would drive that unit correctly, because you don't want to, just because you have life safety power available doesn't mean that you should just like tap into it.
Yeah.
And this was the type of power supply you could get 12 off of it if you knew what you were doing, but it was an illegal modification to the system.
Yeah.
So it's like, so I installed basically at cost of, it wasn't a very expensive 12 volt power supply. It was just something, I could hodgepodge together myself, but it ran it. It's like,
yes.
Yes, kids. So, now with better cell phones and better technology and stuff like that, I always say, take a picture. If you open up something, doesn't matter what it is, and before you start working on it, if you open it up at 8 in, when things are sunny and beautiful, and then at 3 PM when you're scared because you've got to go to Vancouver and things aren't right and you can't get this thing to work, you could at least look back at the picture you took and go, oh yeah, okay, this is how it was originally wired.
Right. And even if it's something simple and you're looking at it and you're like, okay, yeah, it looks like they color matched it, this looks pretty typical, still always take a picture. Please because do. I have just ruined days because I'm like, oh yeah, looks pretty straightforward. Yeah. And then you go to the other side and you're like, oh, they did not go to wire to standard, or they had whatever, bad, not bad install as in craftsmanship, but something happened. They didn't pull the wires long enough, and so then you have two different cables, different colored wires. You just did the best you could to try to get it working for them in a pinch because they really needed it.
Yep.
And then you forget to do labeling or whatever on the backside, and then some poor service guy that works for a company that might not be your company comes in and doesn't take a picture, and then now he's there for an extra, or you are there for another couple hours because you're like, oh, I did not, I just assumed it was going to be done correctly all the way throughout.
I have in all reality, in all my years of doing this, I cannot count how many 4100s or Silent Night 5207s or 5208s I've worked on. I cannot count. I honestly cannot tell you. Hundreds, thousands, millions, tens, I don't even know. A lot. It took that one day when, especially on like a Silent Night where they double up. Like if you have zones, if Zone 1 or Zone 2 are all Class A zones. So those are pretty easy to figure out. But 3, 4 all the way down are different, are Class B zones. So you only have 2 wires. And they double up on the negative. So I can have positive for Zone 3 going out in the field and then coming back on the negative. And that same negative is shared with Zone 4, and the positive comes back on the terminal, and they flip. So positive, negative, negative, positive. Sounds super simple.
Yeah,
sounds super simple.
Well, series.
What
it's
if
a
all,
series.
How could it possibly go wrong? Well, everything's the same damn color.
Right.
And nothing's marked, right? And you're there trying to figure this out. And I've worked for companies where it's like, hey, we expect you to get in there and fix this problem in 2 hours because we've stacked up 4 other calls.
Oh, I know. Yep.
And you have no idea what you're walking into.
Right.
And and literally I have gone where, okay, I have 2 hours to fix this problem because I quote unquote have to get to this next job, and opened up a bucket of worms and gone, I'm not getting out of here in 2 hours. Like that's not going to happen unless you don't want this client anymore. In which case I'll be out in 2 hours, but they'll be calling the
You might be
competition.
worse off.
They might be pissed. So, simple little things like, and I teach this to my students. I always carry a pen. I almost always carry a piece of paper folded in my pocket. I'll always have pockets with shirts. Shirts with pockets so I can write that crap down.
Right.
Tape, white, yellow, orange, red, usually white, so that I can write on it.
Yeah.
And every problem I find, I mark. If there's a ground fault on a pair of wires, I mark it. Even if I've corrected the ground fault, I leave my mark there. So it'll be a little grounded symbol. It'll say ground symbol, apostrophe D.
Yep.
And then the date. And sometimes MJB or something on it so people know it's me. And I just leave it there. Because sure enough, 2 years later, you show up and there's a ground fault back on that same circuit, then theoretically, you should be able to look at my notes and go, well, this idiot troubleshot this ground fault 3 years ago. And it was above the freezer. Let me go to the freezer. Let me just cut right to the quick. There it is, So.
You corrected yourself earlier, but I feel like my wife would have been like, oh, no, you got it right. I have pockets with shirts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably how my wife...
I'm a verbal dyslexic. It happens a lot.
That's my work pants. I'm like, my work pants, they're pockets with pants attached to them.
With pants attached
oh,
to them.
my gosh.
I'm a nut, though. I put stuff in the same, like I'm not ADD, but I'll put everything, like my AirPods go in my front left pocket.
Right.
Always.
Right.
And key, front left pocket always. Wallet, front right pocket always, because I've spent a lot of time overseas. So it's like,
I'm like that with
hanky in my rear left.
with my dailies, like phones on pouches. I have my designated pockets, and then further and further into the day, I'll be like, I got 2 more tweakers in my left pocket. Channel locks.
Right.
How did I not notice they were in there?
Notice they were in there?
Oh, my 11-in-1. Oh, my scissors, nice. So
when I was an installer and doing installation work, that's what I would wind up doing. Is I would start off with nice everything I knew everything was, and by the end of the day, I'm like, what the hell is going on? How can I sit down in these?
I didn't want to carry around my 45-pound backpack is what happened.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
So I get in my own world now, because I'm doing a little bit of service, a little bit of programming, a little bit of a lot of thinking, and not as much physical labor. But wherever I have to go, I have to walk to get there usually, or drive and walk, because it's such a big campus. I've narrowed down the tools that I bring, and my backpack weighs like 30 pounds.
Nice.
And it's got for every situation other than, it even has food in it. So the only thing it doesn't have is a damn coffee pot. That's what it needs. But yeah, and it's all dialed in for like sprinkler. If there's a sprinkler issue, I can handle that. If it's which I rarely have to do at this particular gig, but
I can't
still
wait.
carry that crap because I'm
Right.
like, I cannot go anywhere without carrying a big crescent wrench for an snap moment.
I can't wait for the like personal sized M12 coffee maker.
Yes.
I'm telling you that eventually it'll be like you just put one K-pod in, you know, you pour like a little water from your water bottle in it, slap your M12 battery on it or click it
or
in.
M18 or something. And
just
please. Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
You know
Honestly, okay, Milwaukee, there
You
you
can
go.
have it.
You could partner with Keurig and make some sort of portable electronic coffee maker. That would, because otherwise you got to do like the little packets. Have you done that from Starbucks? You get those little tiny packets of instant coffee.
No, I've heard of like the Folgers crystals.
No. You can get from if you like Starbucks, which I do. They have these little like little foil tubes, and you open them up and add hot water, and you know, like Starbucks coffee is a throat punching kind of coffee. Like you don't mess around with that. The only thing stronger I know of is Pete's.
Yeah,
And
pizza's great.
Pizza's like.
Welcome to Uncle Corner. Pizza's great coffee.
Anytime I see a pizza, it's like I got to stop and get me some of that. Then I'm
So
bouncing
good.
off the walls. But yeah, it's truly dehydrated coffee, and it's unbelievably good.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
You can bring that, you know, and then of course in a hospital there's coffee everywhere, so you don't have to worry about that. But you know, if you work at some godforsaken place that doesn't have coffee, I don't know what the hell you're gonna do.
I'm surprised they're not like marketing that to like the Marine Corps.
What's that?
Those like portable like one coffee.
Yeah. No
Like,
kidding.
I mean,
It's
that
a
would
good
be
idea.
nice. Yeah.
It would be a good idea because, you know, right now, I don't know. I can't live without the stuff, so I don't know how to function without coffee.
Once you're done heating the food, you just move it to this cup and then you drop your little Starbucks in
You
there.
got your whole little. It's like I have a jet boil for camping and for hiking and stuff like that. You ever seen those?
Yeah.
Those things are awesome. But you know, trying to carry compressed gas into a place might not go over well.
No. You're going to
that?
get some side eyes from IT.
Yeah, no kidding. So what? Besides marking everything, taking a picture, which is what I do, and I don't do any security work, and I know that in the security world they kind of frown on, you know, you going into a panel and marking everything. But at the same point in time, if a bad guy has gotten to inside the panel, I'm gonna take a wild guess that they've already penetrated your security field, but I don't know.
No, it's accurate.
I mean, to me, it's like, because I've opened up security panels and worked on them and gone, what the hell is this? Just coils of crap fall out with those little dolphins. And I'm like, what is going on here? And, you know, nothing's consistent. This is one of the reasons I wound up going into fire was because logically, when it's the same. And I don't like showing up to something different every single day of the year.
Yeah,
honestly.
Our company would have a heart attack if they came for the like post-job inspection for like our company and saw a bunch of splices inside of an access control can.
Oh, really? They would go nuts for that?
Would have a heart attack. They'd be like, so what, you just like cut everything too short? Yeah, like maybe you know, you can have like 4 maybe in there, you know. Something got added, we reused a cable, it had to move. But yeah, I agree, because I've done service calls and you're just like, did like the entire panel have to move to a different wall? And also, why, like, wouldn't that be maybe better for a splice can so that we can actually see what we're doing actually in the access control panel?
I have to agree with you. And it's been a very long time since I've worked on any security stuff, like very long time, for a reason. Like it's just not, I don't wake up in the morning and going, God,
and that's Berg or access control when you say security.
I mean, security, like Berg.
Okay.
I could see access control. I could see being.
Yeah, I'm talking about access control because
so,
I don't really do Berg at all. Really.
Oh, so have you ever done it?
A couple times.
So have you opened up this, I've opened up Berg panels and just gone, you've got to be kidding me. I wouldn't say
yeah.
that. I would say something else.
It's same.
You got to be shitting me.
Yeah, it's
I
just
can't
like
do this. Like this is just a garbage. This is honest to God. The one I opened up, it was up in Washington.
like how much do they pay for this?
I have no idea
for it to
to look like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, and I'm just like, what is
Like
happening here?
At that point, just like take your service guys. I don't know. I'm not saying let them go by any means, but like, if they want to be install, let them install, or like manage, like promote like the top one to manager. And then at that point, every installer is the service guy for the jobs that he does.
Yes, exactly.
Because like if I was a service guy for one of those companies, I would just be like, I cannot do this anymore.
I get the fact that they work on very low margins, and I totally do understand that.
Yeah.
I'm not picking on security people because I've seen enough good security installs, because I've worked on a combination of panels where you're doing both, because outside of the city of Portland. But I've also opened up stuff that I just turns my stomach. I've also opened up fire panels like that too. I mean, I've opened up fire panels. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Matter of fact, there was a moniker, one particular technician who I will not mention his name, left on every panel, and every time I opened up the door and saw that moniker, I knew it was going to be a rough day. I freaking knew it, and it did not disappoint. It did not disappoint. And I was like, oh God, here we go again. What kind of finagling am I going to find in here? And I've also gone behind installers that you could tell who installed it. I can practically go, oh, I know who did this. Look at this, and I'll come point out all of the, the way that they put their wires in, the way they trimmed it, the way they trimmed it out. I'm like, yeah, I know who did. I recognize your work.
Yeah, and I can sympathize with like some of those guys because, when you're getting into the industry, like the apprenticeship is very much like a NBA draft, essentially. Okay. Once you're getting in, you get a pool rank, mm-hmm. and then they pull the top 25 from that into the hiring pool.
Okay.
And it just stays at 25. And then basically companies like in the ranks, mm-hmm. just like a draft, start pulling guys out from, the top to the bottom.
It's a good analogy for the sports balls.
Yeah. from my brothers and sisters out there that love the sports balls.
That love the sports balls.
But
for the nerds like me are like, what's a sports ball?
But like, you don't really know where you're going. And some companies will like purposely like insanely underbid, so that they have to get these jobs, and then they don't give their guys enough time to do the craftsmanship. Yep. So it's stressful for the guys that are there,
mm-hmm.
and then now you're pulling in apprentices, right? And they're learning, and then this is all they know.
And they're learning the same terrible methods.
And then you get to a point where they're like, instead of like guys who have worked at different companies and they're like, I'm really good. This is super stressful. Mm-hmm. I don't like this. And so they quit. And then you have, they've shown experiments kind of like with like even monkeys, like doing the same kind of thing. You pull out the original ones and the ones, not calling people monkeys, and they're like, well, this is all I've known. Mm-hmm. So this
is the way to do it.
So this is stressful, but
mm-hmm.
and it creates like a toxic.
I have to agree with that because I've worked for service companies,
and I feel bad for those guys. They got pulled into that.
It. Yeah, and there's no real way to fight back because you can't go back to the salesperson or your manager and go, look, I need more time.
Right.
And they're like, all we can give you is 3 hours of installation and checkout, and that's it. And it's a simple system. How could you possibly running into issues? But what if you have to pull molding up and you don't have the right tool?
Yeah.
Like if you're doing security work in a house, you're touching people's pride and joy.
Yeah.
You go drilling through stuff that they don't want you to drill through. You might run into a problem.
Was that floor new?
Yeah, exactly. And that's not. I don't make light of that because I'm teaching basic trade this term, and I was just telling.
Oh, wow.
One of the things that we were talking about was different materials and bricks and things like that and wood. And I didn't really dwell on a lot of it, but I did say that, if you are working in a high-end house, like something that like Jesse works in, where he's working on a $6 million house, you're not gonna have visible crap when you're done. And if you pull, mahogany molding off and screw it up, putting it back on, someone's gonna pay for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're at Joe Schmuckatelli's house, they may not care. But if you're working in a high-end house, they absolutely will care. And the same thing with buildings. I've worked in buildings where they got done and the owner walked through and said, this is unacceptable. Like, we're not going to do this. And now you're stuck as a technician between, the salesperson and the manager and the owner. And that's a position Gumby should be in, but not a human.
Yeah. So
no one knows who Gumby is, but I do.
I pretended to a second ago.
It's look up Gumby and Pokey, kids. But hey, man, stop what you're doing there. Hey, you're
Itchy and scratchy.
Yeah. He picked up a. You can take some of these with you, please.
Oh, I'm okay.
Are you sure?
We do our treatments, the dogs or cats start getting scratchy, and then you treat them.
He does his treatments too, but they're having quite. They're about to learn the evil ways.
FAFO.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. They're about to learn what you should not do to my German Shepherd.
So, a lot of guys actually in my CB unit have been joining the low voltage IEC apprenticeship.
Yeah, I got one in my class.
Yeah.
David.
No, he was actually, he was like, dude, my teacher's Mike.
Yeah.
And he was like, I was like, oh, what class are you in? And he's like, the first one. I was like, oh, Mike's doing basic trades.
The first class.
Yeah, the first one, getting all that green scraped off.
Yeah, he's doing good. So he stayed and did the lab the other night, and we kind of went through and did that, and we found out that the chipsets, not the chipsets, but the voltage regulators in the little lab, the little kits we built, are the wrong ones.
Oh.
And they all cook. So after just a couple of minutes, like the voltage regulator gets so hot you can't touch it, and then like one of the resistors just smokes. And we're like, what the hell's going on with this? Because everybody built it perfectly.
Right.
And this is the second time I've had the labs or the kits fail. And I asked one of the students, I said, look in the schematic and see what LM number is supposed to be this voltage regulator chip, and it's the wrong one. And it can't handle it. And it's just cooking these things. So now I've got a whole bunch of defective ones. So I'll have to go order the right voltage regulators for them.
Right.
Get them in. But, God, never ends. But he seems to really have his head on his shoulders. So
yeah. I think he's the the sixth person now in our CB unit who has joined IEC.
IEC to be an electrician.
Yeah, there's a big group of us.
That's a big deal, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of concerned with all this going on that you guys are going to get activated, but I'm glad you're not. So
no,
good.
Luckily not.
Yeah,
but
keep you out of harm's way.
Yeah, no, and I'm like, oh, I can't see. I have an appointment at Apple tomorrow.
I totes can't go to one.
They got a panel offline.
Yeah, I gotta fix this. So once again, kids, we have to give away this pack out kit from Milwaukee. So Instagram, go to Instagram, give them the
Halfwattpod
at Instagram.com.
Yep.
.org.
Yeah.
.net.
So I mean, if you guys want to get ahead of it, because I'm not sure exactly when we're going to start it, but go on there. If you follow, I mean, you already have your first ticket in, and then just we'll release it and we'll say, hey, throw this on your story, add a guy, mention somebody in the comments.
And you could tell all your friends, this was Mike's pack out kit that he gave to me. Right? Big time.
From farm to table.
And I've
from Mike to you.
From Mike to you. No, I think this is a good place for it to go.
Oh yeah, this is awesome.
It says on it, includes customizable insert.
Yeah.
You hear that sound in the background, kids? That is this pack out kit, which we're going to give away to one of you fine listeners. So get on it. Get to Instagram.
Keep your eyes open.
Keep
Watch
your eyes
the page.
Open. Let's do this. Have a great day. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for listening to the Half Watt Podcast. We always want to hear from you, and we encourage you to email us at halfwattpod@gmail.com with questions or even your own stories. Funny, crazy, or praiseworthy, we want to hear it all. You can follow us on Instagram at halfwattpod to stay up to date on our feed. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and share us with a friend, the best way to help us grow. The Half Watt Podcast is a production of Now Hear This Studios.